everybody. Welcome to Camel City Chat. I am here with the fire chief of all of Winston-Salem, Trey Mayo, who I think might admit on camera that we're friends.
We're friends. Good acquaintances.
Good acquaintances. Chief, thanks for being here today. I
glad
appreciate it. Of course, I need to say thanks for having us here today because can you see it up there? We got to talk about the 18. We're at Station 18.
Fire Station 18, we are behind the Lowe's Foods,
Right.
near the intersection of Peace Haven and Robin Hood.
Right. We have two vehicles here that are of importance. This is engine 18.
That's right.
And then not next to us because in case there's emergency is ladder 18.
Yep, sitting out on the front pad, that's right.
All right, so I want to ask all kinds of questions about fires and things like that because you know, FTEs, all that kind of stuff, because you have a huge department that you work with that help support our safety. And so I want to talk about that, but we got three questions we got to get out of the way first. You know what they are?
I'm ready.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Where are you from and how long you been in Winston-Salem?
So I grew up in Plymouth, down on the northeast coast,
Right.
about 65 miles west of Manio on Highway 64.
Right.
And I've been in Winston-Salem since January 2015, so about 5.5 years.
Mm-hmm. You like it?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the most convenient places I've ever lived, with the exception of getting to salt water.
Plymouth, I always used to make that drive because, you know, we had the store in Nags Head, Nags Head News, so I'd come over that way, hit the, come into Raleigh, do the roundabout there to get down, and then you knew you were getting closer, and then when you got to Plymouth, you knew you were really getting closer,
right.
and take the left turn at the billboard and head on into Manio, and then it was just, once you got over the bridge from Manio on to the banks, and it was just like, I don't care how long it takes me to get there now, I'm close enough to salt water.
That's right.
You're back to normal.
You knew you were really getting rural down there on that 2-lane stretch east of Columbia.
The Dismal Swamp, wasn't it?
No, that's the Alligator River National Wildlife
Refuge. That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. All I knew is I was never going to get pulled over on the side there and have to stop for anything because who knew what would have come out of that area.
I've seen bears and alligators and all sorts of things alongside that road.
I believe it. So obviously you moved here when you interviewed for the job. You were one of 3 candidates in the end?
I think they started out with between 45 and 60 applicants. Of course, with any job like this, you can eliminate half of them pretty quickly.
Right.
So I think they put 6, if I remember, 5 or 6 through the actual assessment.
Right, and then now I remember one of the big things in the journal was the the community meetings and the town halls and stuff where you got to go into different sections of our city and meet people and stuff like that. That was part of the interview process, if I remember correctly.
What we did was a sort of an open forum for employees and other members of the public, elected leaders and that sort of thing. We did that as part of the 2-day assessment at the Home and Garden Building at the fairgrounds.
Right, okay. All right, all right, so the second question, this is the one that was the hardest one. I told you ahead of time, you really got to think about this. When's the last time you went to a restaurant? But what's your favorite place to eat in Winston-Salem?
There are a lot of restaurants that my wife and I like to go to. The Porch, Jeffrey Adams. I like Milner's.
Yeah.
So we
some good places.
We spread it around. Yeah.
We interviewed Mary for the show last week. Mary's, of course, and we talked about it. One of her favorite places is La Botana, and there's just so many wonderful restaurants around, and it's just so weird not to be able to experience them like we were.
Yeah, I heard somebody describe it pretty well the other day, that they were suffering from COVID fatigue.
Okay.
And I think that sums it up
I
pretty
agree.
concisely.
Yeah. So what's your favorite thing now? Your daughter is 7 now?
8.
8? Okay, mine just turned 6. We always are talking about this, like, hey, you went on the Disney cruise. We've talked about it. It's like, you're going to do it. So by the way, we have Disney scheduled for October.
Good for you.
So I have a friend of mine, Rick Babuziak. He's gone. He says it's kind of interesting that you're at, when it's 20 or 30% of the park, like they just ride whatever ride. The longest they waited for any ride was like 10 minutes.
I would say, I guess there are some positive externalities related to COVID. One is no more handshaking. I've always thought that was a bad habit, spreading.
The fist bump's okay though.
Yeah, that's better because you're not, that's not the part of your hand that you touch everything with. But we're a member of a neighborhood pool here, and they only let 50 people in. You got to pre-register, so you know who's going to be there when you get there, and you can only stay 2 hours. So there've been some benefits to reduce traffic and not being so many people out. But the downside of that is a lot of businesses are suffering as a result of that reduction in clientele.
And I want to get to something else too. With the people at home more and people cooking more, I know that two things. One is you love prevention, and I mean, no one else can see it, but I see it there. We're going to talk about that because that's a great, wonderful, preventative, protective thing with the stop there. But are you seeing an uptick in fires based on that? So I want to get to that, but we have to ask the third question, what's your favorite thing to do?
We, my wife and child and I, we spend a lot of time outdoors, but here in Winston, if you're going to find us at a public facility, you probably are most often going to see us at Salem Lake. We sometimes take the boat to the lake, ride the trail, walk the trail. So, we frequent Salem Lake.
And now with the ability that they've tied it into more stuff and things like that, it's really cool. I mean, you can rent a Zagster bike downtown and ride it all the way out to Salem Lake.
Yeah, really a nice facility. My daughter likes to fish. My wife is a runner, and so we'll go.
See you later, honey.
That's right.
I got to watch her.
She runs the loop. We all kind of unload there at the boat ramp. My daughter and I go fishing, and when my wife gets back when she's made that 7-mile loop, she calls us, and we go pick her up at the boat ramp, and at the dock. It's nice.
I wanted to go on to the other thing, but now then you mentioned running. It's interesting you mentioned that. One of the first initiatives that you did when you became chief was say, hey, we got to be healthier firefighters.
We did.
So there was a period, I don't know if they're doing it still, but there was a period it was like, hey, if you got to walk around Miller Park and stuff like that.
Yeah, we've still got a ways to go, but statistically about half the firefighters who die every year in this country are dying from cardiac arrest. So we do impress upon the firefighters the importance of healthy living, eating well, exercising, this time of year, hydrating, not only at work, but when they're off duty, cutting out the tea and soft drinks and coffee and, even sports drinks are not recommended for pre-hydrating.
Really?
We carry sports drinks on our rehab truck, but we don't bring that stuff out until they've been working for about an hour because that sodium and sugar load is really not good for you pre-hydrating or on the front end of a strenuous output.
How much water do you drink a day?
I try to drink 3 or 4 quarts.
Okay. Yeah. So we had talked about COVID and being at home, and I know you were ready to answer that question, and I took it away from you real quick, and I want to give it back and say, hey, how much has your calls changed with people being more at home?
It's interesting you asked that question, and you're not the first person. We were really geared up for cooking fires because on a normal year, about 51 or 2% of our fires start on the stovetop, and we thought everybody's going to be home.
Kids that weren't normally cooking are now cooking?
Yeah,
right?
I mean, for various reasons, we were really prepared for an uptick in cooking fires, and it has been just the opposite. So what we've determined, and not all fire departments have experienced that. Durham's cooking fires are up, way up, but ours are down, and we think it's because here in Winston-Salem, there are more adults at home watching what's going on in the kitchen. Not that I would not describe us as having juveniles were not the source, adolescents were not the source of our cooking fires, but I guess just by nature there being more folks wandering around the house, when something starts to smoke or smell, they do something about it before a fire starts.
It even could be, another thing is just when we're at home now, we're more focused than we were before because we've already been at home. Whereas before it was like, hey, I got to get the laundry done, and you leave it more unattended. Well, you did the laundry 4 hours ago during a conference call.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that's a good point because we have experienced over the years a number of situations where somebody put something on the stove, they forget that they've put it there, and they go pick pick a child up from basketball practice or piano lessons, or they running out to a meeting or going to work, or you name it. Wherever we were a lot busier 3 or 4 months ago than we are now, I think. So yeah, I think the distractions are fewer, and that's the thing with cooking fires is, we see so many times people come in from work, put a pan of grease on the stove. They say, in their minds, they say, I'm going to let this heat up. I'm going to go change clothes. And so they leave the kitchen, go to bedroom. Well, then the phone rings, and where they had planned to be in the bedroom 5 minutes to change clothes, they're in the bedroom 25 minutes. They come back and the kitchen's on fire. The doorbell rings, the baby cries. There are so many things that just take your attention away from whatever it is that you've put on that 240 volt heating appliance that we walk by all the time. That's just so dangerous. But because it's, I ask people all the time in groups, how many of you have firearms? And so, a certain number put their hands up. How many of you have lawn chemicals or drain openers or sword collection? All these things that are dangerous, chainsaws and boats and things that in some cases you probably shouldn't be allowed to buy without a license. But when you say, how many of you don't have a stove? Everybody has a stove in their house. And it's just like electricity. The fire code requires a cover plate on a light switch. And how many times a day does the average person turn a light on, turn a light off? If not for that cover plate, that cover plate is the difference between, is the 3/4 of an inch between you turning the light on and off and you getting electrocuted. But it's just like gasoline. We use electricity, we use gasoline, we use that stove so much. The fear and respect for those things that we should have becomes complacency because we're around those things all the time.
How many times do you need to turn that disposal on and your hand's just a little wet?
Yeah.
And you're just like, and you just barely touch the end of it and stuff like that.
Yep.
I mean, I'm fortunate in that I know you, and we've talked on Real Estate Radio, and we've talked about different things. I know that you are a huge proponent on a couple things. I don't know if you know this. What we do is we will talk for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then we'll take a break because the camera doesn't do that. So that's why if you've watched the show, it's like, hey, well, let's go cut to this or whatever. So I want to ask you a question if we can do this. You have the location of the video, right? That's the one that you always talk about. That's basically here's what the house did in 1970 compared to what it is now. Can you share that link with us?
Yeah, it's on YouTube, and you can search UL Modern versus Legacy.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to put a link in the video, just because we'll take a quick little break here and do that. But this is, to set this up, explain to what everyone's going to be watching right now.
So it's a side-by-side burn in one of Underwriters Laboratories burn labs.
Right.
And it's
very impressive, by the way.
It's a room that is, I believe it's 12 by 12 with an 8-foot ceiling, side by side, and they furnish one with. There's no smoke and mirrors. It's Underwriters Laboratories. They're a straight up testing lab. But they furnished one of the homes as if it would have, or one of the rooms as if it had been furnished in 1970. That is with wood, cotton, linen, bamboo, natural fibers that were in our homes in 1970. Wool, I don't know if I mentioned wool, a lot of wool carpet back then. And then the other room is furnished as if it was, as what we would find in our homes today. And our homes today are full of synthetics, things that began their lives in an oil well.
Right, everything's out of oil. Yeah.
Nylon, vinyl, polyester, polyurethane, almost everything in your home is made up of some variant of those hydrocarbon products. And they set them both on fire, and they let you see what happens.
One's like about 30 minutes before it really gets serious?
Takes about 28 or 30 minutes for the one from 1970, the legacy room, before it goes to a point of what we call flashover, which is everything in the room is off-gassing and burning.
And even the smoke then catches on fire at some point,
right? On the modern side, so you see it go to flashover in about 3.5 minutes. And you get, as you say, you get to see that smoke is fuel. You know that when you see a house on fire, all that dark gray and black smoke, if you get it under the right conditions of fuel and air, just like in your automobile, lighting a candle or anything, you've got to have the fuel there, the heat has to be right, you've got to have a source of ignition with the right amount of oxygen, and when those things come together, that smoke will burn just like natural gas will burn.
Well, to me, it's like, and I know you're an outdoors person, it's like those little solo campfire things that you can buy now. It's just it's aerated so that the smoke comes and it comes back around, and when you're done, it's just ash in there.
Right.
It burns it actually burns the smoke and everything. And of course, I learned that from you before I saw this thing.
Yeah.
But let's watch that video, and then we'll come back and talk some more.
Okay.
That's made an impression on me now. What, 3 or 4 years we've known each other, maybe even longer.
Probably.
And
4 or 5.
yeah, I mean that's something I always talk about when I talk to people about different things. Actually, one of my neighbors works in an industry that you're going to be like, oh no. She sells pre-made joining accessories for trusses. One of your favorite topics.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know that's something else. So we've talked about, obviously, modern construction with regard to petroleum products. Now, in the construction industry, we have engineered trusses and stuff like that. Speaking like we were just talking about with some of your team here, skin in the game, those trusses only have minuscule things in, and so if there's a fire, this causes a problem as well, right?
Yeah, they're about 3/8 of an inch. So the device you're talking about is called a gusset plate, or
right.
Some people call them a gang nail. But yeah, so the evolution in engineering and computer technology has brought us from, you go look at an old mill building, old factory. The people who designed those buildings 150 years ago, they didn't really know what it took to hold up a machine, some kind of big piece of machinery. We don't manufacture in this country like we used to, but we have these huge buildings that in the fire business we know them as heavy timber. So you go in and they have these massive columns that hold up the building.
And they're not going anywhere.
No, even under a fire load, they will burn and remain structurally sound for a long time because they are, in essence, overbuilt. Mm-hmm. So, to move that into a residential building, a house, if you go into a house that was built in the 40s and 50s and go in the attic, that's the easiest place to see this. The roof decking in the 40s and 50s is true dimensional lumber. That's at least 1x lumber.
Right.
It's tongue and groove. It's all nailed together. The roof, the structural members that hold up the roof, the joists, they are all true 2x dimensional lumber. They're 2x6, 2x8 dimensional lumber. And when you measure that, it's 2 inches in one direction and 6 or 8 inches in the other direction.
Right.
When so come forward to about 1990, well, so starting somewhere back in, I don't know really when it started, 60s or 70s. So when you went and bought a 2x4 in the 60s and 70s, and you measure it, it's 1.5 by 3.5.
Yeah.
So we're not truly on dimensional.
That's one of the exams
anymore.
on the general contractors. One of the questions on the exam is, what's the nominal size of a 2x4? You would answer, 1.5, 1 3/8 by. It's actually 2x4. And that's one of the ways they get people is because the builders are like, well, they're just trying to trick people. Yeah. Me being a non-builder was like, oh, it's 2x4,
right.
and
but it's not.
It's not.
Go buy a piece of half-inch plywood, a sheet of half-inch plywood. Yeah. It's not half an inch. It's not a half an inch. It's 15-30 seconds.
Right.
And so we've decided that 1.5 by 3.5, that's good enough for a 2x4. We figured that 15-30 seconds, it doesn't have to be a half inch to be a sheet of plywood. And it'll do what we need it to do, and it's cheaper, less expensive to manufacture, it's cheaper to sell. But what we've done is we've lost that kind of overbuilt nature of buildings now. So come forward from the 60s and 70s when they probably went to this what's truly dimensional lumber. And in the 90s, we went to another phase of engineering whereby a lot of homes, particularly apartment buildings, condominiums, they are built with what we in the business call lightweight truss or lightweight construction trussed roof and flooring systems. So when I say a truss, you've got some assembly that is a variation of a triangle. A triangle is a very strong
geometric.
Thank you.
It's okay.
Geometric shape.
You're much more educated, but I got the word, and I'm happy.
So what they do is these trusses are pre-manufactured in a factory, and so everywhere the boards go together, there's a gang nail or gusset plate that's pressed into it, and they haul these assemblies out to the building site on a truck, and they put them up.
And not only are they probably pressed into it, they're probably glued into it with a petroleum to hold it in place.
There's a lot of glue in building materials. Oriented strand board, what we know is OSB, that is taking the place of plywood in a lot of areas. That is, there's probably as much glue in that sheet of product as there is wood.
Right.
But
how does this affect you guys, though?
Well, so it does a couple of things. One is, particularly in those floor systems, so you may have a floor system in a 2 or 3 story apartment building that'll be about this, so the ceiling of the ground floor is here, the floor of the second floor is here, and there are void spaces in that floor assembly.
Right.
So those are good areas for fire to run.
And they're going to cross out chases and stuff like that.
Yeah, so fire will get in those void spaces and run. So you think you're fighting fire in apartment A, and all of a sudden you got smoke coming out of apartment G,
right?
Because that fire has gotten in a void space and run, and run in that void space, and you've got fire coming out everywhere in all these voids. The other thing it has done is, because the gusset plate, that protrusion on the gusset plate that holds the truss assembly together only goes into the wood 3/8 or 1/2 inch. It doesn't take much fire before enough of that wood has burned away that assembly loses its structural integrity. So what I would tell you is, if you're living in one of these buildings, under normal conditions, these things are engineered on a computer by structural engineers who are trained to do that, and they're fine. They'll hold up a snow load, they'll withstand wind. What they do not do well is hold up under fire load. So what we saw 30 years ago when I got in this business is firefighters could be walking around on the roof of a building doing ventilation or conducting other fireground operations 40 or 50 minutes after the fire started. We are increasingly going now, and when we arrive on the scene, the roof's already collapsed. So you're talking about sometimes 8 or 10 minutes after ignition, that assembly has lost its structural integrity and the roof is caved in.
And I know you're a huge education person when it comes to training, et cetera, and stuff like that. And then you have an older person's been with you that fights based on instinct and stuff, and so you're trying to marry all that stuff, because what we've seen in the video you just showed us was, 1, you need to be out of the house in 1.5 minutes.
Yep.
2, when the firefighters get there, you now have to fight the fire a completely different way than you've known all your life, because you could step on the wrong thing and be in the fire.
Yeah, absolutely. We have changed strategies and tactics related to fire control as a result of what we just talked about. And Not everybody likes it, but my position is, if you get on the roof of a building on fire, you better have a real good reason as to why you got up there.
Right.
Because what they taught us, even going back to when I was in the fire academy, they taught us two things about the fire. They taught us a lot about the fire ground, but two things they taught us is, when you're doing vertical ventilation, you vent as near to being over the fire as possible. And the most dangerous place to be on the fire ground is over the fire.
Right.
So why do we send a crew of firefighters with a chainsaw, a crew of firefighters in gear? If you send 2 or 3 people up there, you're talking about 450 to 600 pounds of weight, and firefighters in gear, chainsaws, ladders. We're going to send them to cut a hole in the roof over the fire, which is the most dangerous place on the fire ground to be. It's never made any sense to me. So we rarely get on the roof of a building on fire anymore, just because of the danger. And we have other mechanisms by which to ventilate smoke and fire gases and products of combustion out of a building without getting on the roof and working over the fire.
It's interesting to me. As I said, you and I are friends, and I love your passion. I know you were just you're getting real passionate about fighting fires and protecting your team. And so let's go ahead and knock out one subject that is one of the reasons why you're on the show, is because I called you to tell you that I love you, man, and I'm thinking about you. In your department right now, there's some people that are concerned about treatment and what's going on, and I know you and know that this does not represent you in any way, shape, or form, and I pretty much probably know what your answer is going to be ahead of time, but how do you handle when you have a member of your family that doesn't feel like they're being treated properly, when you of all people treat everyone that I've ever seen you around to be a friend, family member, and all you care about is keeping them safe? So, take what I'm saying and say what you can say, basically.
Well, what I would tell you is the same thing I've told the members of the fire department, and that is, it is not, and nor has it ever been acceptable for our employees to come to work and feel like they're working in a hostile environment.
Zero tolerance.
We have a zero tolerance policy for it. Policies are in place. The key to that is when one of our, as you say, one of our family members feels like they're in that situation, they have got to report that,
right,
so that we can investigate and address it.
And it has to be, the other thing is, it has to be an environment where they feel like they can. And I think that no one starts a job and the first thing they say is, hey, guys, the thing that kills us the most is heart attacks. Let's get out and walk and try and be healthier and not care. That's what troubled me, and that's why I called you, because I just know that's not you, and I don't want you to think that that's blaming you. I think that every family has someone that's an idiot and that's doing the wrong thing. And if someone is actually treating someone incorrectly, then they need to be zero tolerance.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what? Well, I guess let's talk about your family. How many people do you have that you work with now at the Winston-Salem Fire Department?
Because we're managing a staffing grant, and with some of the FEMA requirements that came along with accepting that grant, that's not as easy a question to answer as you would think it.
More than one and less than 10,000.
So our authorized staffing right now today is 368. That's suppression, operations, and support personnel, fire and life safety branch, fire inspectors, investigators, mechanics who work on our fire trucks. That's everybody on the fire department's payroll. We're authorized at 368.
Okay. And then you have 19 fire stations.
Right.
All right. So your office is at which one?
My office is at the Public Safety Center, the Vivian Burke
Right.
Public Safety Center, that's at the corner of Cherry and 8th. So
right.
My office is not in a fire station.
And what's the one downtown called?
So Central Fire Station is in the 600 block of Marshall Street.
And is that got a number or no?
1.
Okay, that's number 1.
Yep.
So is it 11 or 4 that's over on Arbor Road? Seven. Yeah, I can't do numbers.
7 is on Arbor. A lot of people think that building is addressed on Country Club, but the address is actually 100 Arbor Road.
Okay, and so I've never shown you the picture, and I'm not showing it here, folks. I'll find this. I had some friends that were at 7, and so they let me come visit them one day. You weren't here yet, by the way, just so. I've got a picture of me holding on in full uniform like this. That we did as a joke, and then my Christmas card that year was hang in there. So they're picking my feet up and took the picture of me hanging on to the back.
Right.
I got to go down the pole. Now that's one of 2 poles you have in the city?
Let's see, there's a pole there and there's a pole at 2. Those are the only 2 that come to my mind. Yeah.
The one doesn't have a pole, does it?
No, that's
Okay.
a 1-story station.
So yeah, so there are 2 poles. And do they even use the pole anymore?
Yeah,
Okay,
we
so
use
those
the
2 they
poles.
do, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the weirdest things you'll ever do in your life is because you reach out, and they now have the gusset, right, that opens up once you put pressure on it?
Yeah, so there's a set of like clamshell doors, and once you put a load on the pole, those doors
So it's like,
open.
what, you want me to do what? And then it's like I reach out, and then all of a sudden this door opens up like, oh, that didn't help any. I would have rather me like hit a button for it to open up.
right.
'Cause now I'm looking down and come down and stuff like that.
Yeah, they have tried over the years to come up with an improved way of getting from the 2nd floor of a fire station down to the apparatus room.
Slide.
They've tried sliding boards, and
It works great at the Kempton.
most stations, we're trying to go to everything being on one floor.
Right.
But the pole still hangs around. There's one company in the United States that manufactures fire poles.
Right.
And
I want to tell, because people don't understand this, and we've just got, before we have to take another break, maybe we can take a picture of the truck or something as we take a cut for a second and get a glass of water. But not only do your fire staff here, they mow the yard here, they wash the trucks here, this is their home, they upkeep it, paint, all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, this is a family when they're here.
That's right. Yeah, they're here for 24 hours.
Right.
We change shifts every morning at 7:30.
Right.
When they come to work, they're here together in what is in essence a big house for 24 hours.
So they've got a mom or a dad.
A captain.
Yeah.
Or in this case of a 2-company station, there are 2 captains here who share responsibility.
So there are 2 captains here now?
Yep. We have a captain assigned to every piece of apparatus.
Okay.
So in a 2-company station like this, where you have 2 pieces of apparatus staffed,
Okay.
there's a captain assigned to each
So
one.
that's why when they said we were going out of service, that those few people were fine to, and then of course you told them, don't be out of service. We can stand up, you can take the truck if it's an
That's right,
emergency.
yeah.
That was kind of funny. It was one of those things where it's like, oh, well, we're going to let you know. No, the first thing that the chief said when he got here is they asked him a question. He goes, I'm not the captain of this station.
I don't run the
I'm
fire
just here
station.
as a guest. You just tell me when you need the truck, we'll move.
That's right.
And of course, Stabler keeps going. Hey, when's there going to be a call so that we have to stand up and move?
Yeah, this is not one of our busier stations, but
That's why you chose here, I figured.
Well, that and I felt like it was convenient for the both of us.
Yeah.
But and it would give you an opportunity to see one of our newer ladder trucks. This is our second newest ladder truck here. This is a 104 foot climbing ladder that we took delivery of about 2015.
I remember when you guys got that. Yeah, it was all over the paper, the new truck. All right, let's show the truck. So we'll do that, okay?
All right.
So just basically that's it. And then this is how you just unhook it?
So it unhooks by itself. This is how you put it on.
Okay.
I'll show you on this one over here.
Okay.
So watch, hold that up there with one hand. So it's operated by air pressure. So when I do that, that's how you get your attachment onto the exhaust pipe. And then,
All right, so, and thanks for sharing that time walking around the truck and letting us see it. That's kind of
sure.
cool. So it goes up 100, how many feet?
104 from the ground to the top rung.
All right, so now with it's Aerial 1, right?
This is ladder.
Not here, but Aerial 1 is downtown?
Ladder 1.
Ladder 1 downtown. All right, where'd I get the Aerial from? They used to call it Aerial?
Years ago.
Okay,
now
see,
you're
I'm
showing your
old
age.
school right there. All right, so ladder 1, and of course I'm tapping my mic too, I do that. But ladder 1, how high will it go?
101.
101.
Yeah.
And so that's always the thing is if I'm in a high building, you got to get down to a point where they can get to you, which is 100 feet off the ground, right?
Well, not really, because you figure we don't climb straight up.
Right.
You know, 70 degrees is the appropriate climbing angle. And, you know, there's got to be some setback from the building. We've got sidewalks and landscaping and parked cars and
So
other
what do we get
things
to, about the 5th or 6th floor?
somewhere between 6 and 8, depending
Okay.
on how far the floors are apart and how close we can get to the building. And
Right.
yeah, there are a lot of variables that go into making that call.
But that's also why in construction now, the first thing you see built is a concrete tube that's basically the staircase, and it's really not part of the building.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is in the fire code.
Yeah.
That you have to have means of egress, elevators, stairwells that are protected in various means by their hour rating, by smoke fans. You know, some of them evacuate smoke under negative pressure. Some keep smoke from going in by positive pressure. And you're not talking to the fire code expert. That's when
You just put them out.
You need to talk to the fire marshal if you want to get into all those intricacies. But there are a lot of things in buildings that affect your life passively that are there because of the fire code.
Well, for instance, hour-rated sheetrock in the garage. So, I mean,
Right.
you know, if a fire starts in the garage, suppose it's going to take an hour before it gets into my house.
Yeah. So your drywall, your fire-rated drywall is 5/8.
Right.
Most of the other drywall is 1/2 inch.
Okay. Now, all right, so I want to talk about a couple things before we get to the big question about where you want to see Winston go. So the first thing is the sprinklers. I know that sprinklers are very important to you, that you believe in, that they not only save buildings but also save lives. And so tell us a little bit about sprinklers.
Yeah. So you're talking about fire sprinklers, not yard sprinklers.
Well, yeah.
Here's a fact for you.
Yeah.
There are between 4,000 and 5,000 irrigation meters in the city of Winston-Salem.
Okay.
You know how many sprinkler houses there are that we know of?
How many?
0.
Okay.
I have 3. My house is partially sprinklered, but it's not fully sprinklered.
Okay.
What that tells me is people are way more concerned about keeping their grass alive than keeping their family alive.
Okay.
Residential fire sprinklers run on the domestic water system. So
Okay.
the same water that you use to flush your toilet, run your washing machine, wash your hands, that's the same water.
drink.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the same water that makes a residential sprinkler system work.
Right.
They cost between $1 and $2 a square foot when a house is under construction.
And okay.
No maintenance.
Right.
Sprinkler heads are recommended to be replaced every 25 years.
Okay.
There has never been a multi-death fire in a building in America that had a properly operating sprinkler system. That's pretty compelling data to me. The beauty of a sprinkler system is it's an active system.
Right.
People try to pass off smoke alarms, smoke detectors, and there's a difference, but for the layperson, they're the same thing. People try to pass off smoke alarms and smoke detectors in lieu of a residential fire sprinkler.
Right.
Smoke alarms and smoke detectors are passive devices. All they say is, hey, I smell smoke. They don't do anything about it. A fire sprinkler takes action when there's a fire. You know, when your dog is home by himself or herself and the smoke alarm goes off, all they do is hear something. You know, they can't do anything about it. When you're on vacation at work, smoke alarm goes off, nobody's taking any action. A sprinkler system takes action. It sees the fire, activates, puts the fire out while the fire is small. Sprinkler systems are made to work on small fires, and that's why they activate. A residential sprinkler system activates at about 135 degrees. Let's debunk the myth of what you see on TV and in the movies is, so when you pull a fire alarm, a pull station in a building, it does not set the sprinkler system off. If the fire is in the kitchen and the sprinkler head in the kitchen goes off, the sprinkler head in the bedroom does not go off. It's a heat activated device and it only goes off in reaction to that heat. So you only get water on the fire.
It addresses the problem.
It addresses the problem. The cost to, you're in the real estate business, you find this interesting maybe. The cost to repair a home equipped with residential fire sprinklers is 1/4 of the cost to repair a home that's experienced a fire not equipped with residential fire sprinklers.
Because your best time usually is between 8 to 10 minutes from the call, right?
At the 90th percentile, we're putting a first due suppression unit
Right.
at the end of your driveway in about 7 minutes, and I say about, it's not an about time, 7 minutes and 53 seconds.
If you haven't figured this out, folks, he knows exactly what he's saying. I can tell you that right now. I mean, I'd hate to see the spreadsheet, but I mean, that is the number. So the average is 7 minutes and 53 seconds.
That's not the average, that's the 90th percentile.
90th.
We don't measure anything as an average, we measure the 90th percentile.
So
what I
9 out of 10.
That's right. 9 out of 10 times we'll
And
be
the
there.
10th time is probably at 8 minutes.
Well, you know, you have to account for, as you said, the crew might be cutting the grass.
Right.
They may be in the grocery store buying groceries for the meals.
Or some idiot won't get out of the way.
You know, there are you know, this engine may have a call and already be on a call.
Right.
Those things happen. So what we guarantee is, as you said, 9 times out of 10, 900 times out of 1,000, however you want to work those numbers. 7 minutes and 53 seconds.
Wow. So
That's from the time the phone rings in the 911 center.
right. So prevention is your biggest love, passion, etc. And I know this is huge right here. So let's tell them about the fire stop.
Yeah, so there are a couple of brands of these on the market. One is Auto Out.
Right.
This happens to be a stovetop fire stop. These come in 3 variations. And they come as a set. So
Okay.
I only have one because it's easier to travel with one.
Right.
But if you bought this particular model, you'd get 2. This is a magnet. This model is made to go under a vent hood. So if
Okay.
you have a cooktop, you've got a vent hood, got a fan over your cooktop. That's what this model is designed for. Magnet sticks under the vent hood. One on the right covers the left and the front and back right side burners. The one on the left covers the front and rear left
Right.
side burners. Industrial grade firecracker.
Okay.
Most people didn't know there was such a thing. That's
Yeah.
what this is. This is a fuse.
Yep.
The can is cut in such a way that when the firecracker fires, it opens in a particular manner. And inside here is an industrial grade sodium bicarbonate,
Right.
baking soda. So this thing hangs over your cooktop. You have fire, only operates on direct flame contact, no heat, no smoke. 6-year shelf life, requires no maintenance. Get these delivered to you for about $50. I would challenge any of the insurance brokers who are watching this show to come up with this kind of protection for $50 for 6 years.
So $50 for 6 years, 2 of them, put them on there at your stovetop in your hood. But more important, how many of the 100 fires that happen in Forsyth County are stovetop related?
If there are 100 fires in Forsyth County, 51 of them would start on the stovetop. And in Winston-Salem, we answer about 285 house fires a year. So we would cut that number in half
With that.
if everybody had these. And they come in 2 models that go under and over the range microwave.
Right.
So like I say, they've got 3 different designs to accommodate, as long as you've got something over your cooktop. Now, these folks who've got the Gen Airs out in an island won't have anything for that. You got to stand by your pan.
Well, you know what I have? I have the, I think I've told you about this. I have the glass ball. It looks like a light bulb, and and I'll send you a picture of it. I'll text it to you later. But you throw it at the fire and it breaks. They used to be painted red.
Is this a UL approved device that you're talking about?
No, this is an antique. This is an antique, man.
Yeah.
I got a firefighter antique.
What you are talking about, not having seen it, but likely would generate phosgene gas in
Right.
the event that you threw it on a fire. And phosgene is fairly deadly, so
Don't do it.
I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay, thanks.
Hit some of these
Yeah,
instead.
no worries, buddy. You got that. All right. So how much time we got, Stabler?
9 minutes.
Okay. So I got 2 questions left for you. Then you got a few minutes left. One is, what's a call for you? Because that's changed over the years. So when does this roll?
About 72 or 3% of our calls a year are medical in nature.
Right.
Now we don't go to stump toes and stomach aches and that sort of thing. We go to medical emergencies where a firefighter's training and equipment allow the crew to make a difference.
Okay.
Sudden cardiac arrest, childbirth, severe bleeding, trauma, severe motor vehicle crashes, not rear end or not fender bender in the
Right.
parking lot type stuff. And we do that about 16 or 18,000 times a year.
Okay.
Our second most frequent call is
The cat out of the tree, right?
you've never seen it. When's the last time you saw a cat skeleton in a tree?
Okay.
That cat got up there, he'll get down, or she will get down by themselves. The second most frequent thing we go to are fire alarm activations.
Right.
So, and they are 8 times out of 10, they're commercial. So we're going in a lot of commercial buildings, about 4,500 times a year for fire alarm activations that are almost always a false activation. So, what I would say to commercial property owners and managers is make sure you're maintaining your fire detection systems like you should be.
Yeah.
There's a recommendation. The fire code has requirements. We go to them a lot because of dust. We go to them a lot because people are testing the system as is required by the fire code, and they forget to call the alarm monitoring company and put the system in test.
Because I've learned, hypothetically, even if you pick the phone up on a fire one, they still come anyway. So even if you give them the cancellation code, they still come anyway. Not that I've done it.
You've heard about it from
I've
some
heard
friends.
about it, and I will say that fortunately for me, my wife did it not soon after, so that within a year of each other, I did it, and then my wife did it, so I don't feel stupid now.
Yeah.
But she enjoys it more that the firefighters show up at the house. But it always happens with the steak in the hot cast iron skillet.
Yeah.
So.
And smoke alarms and detectors are not recommended in kitchens or immediately outside of kitchens,
Right.
or in bathrooms or immediately outside of bathrooms,
Right.
because the water vapor, the smoke from blackening your steak, searing your
Right.
steak, whatever you're doing, those smoke alarms and detectors today are really, really sensitive.
Right. So we got that. So we got severe medical. We've got commercial. Then what else do we roll for?
Then it falls back to all the other stuff. The building fires, power lines down, trees on houses. You name it. What I like to tell people is when you call 911 and your problem does not fit clearly into a medical problem or a law enforcement problem, those telecommunicators are trained to send the closest available fire truck.
Right.
Because the fire department has the largest toolboxes in the city on wheels, and we have the personnel. We do carry water, about 600 gallons on a city pumper, but second to that, and this is a credit to our personnel, is when we show up, we've got the broadest skill set of. I don't want this to sound like it may to other departments in the city, because the fire department is part of the machine that is the city of Winston-Salem.
Well, a lot of your people were EMTs before they became firefighters.
They've done a lot of things before they came to us, but. I'm not stretching it by any order to say that when a fire crew arrives, that's the broadest skill set of any single resource that the city can deliver to a crisis.
Am I dating myself in saying that I know what a PSO is?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember.
We got out of the PSO business in 1987.
Yeah. So you had firefighters that were police officers and vice versa?
Well, we had police officers who were trained to fight fire.
Okay,
It's a system that its primary goal was to save money on staffing, but the effectiveness of it has never paid off.
Right.
I don't know of anybody. There may be a handful of very small jurisdictions around the country who still deploy that model, but anybody of any size has gone away from it.
All right, Chief, your last question. We're going to let you go today. And that is, you know where Winston-Salem's been. Where do you see our city, Winston-Salem, going, and where do you want it to be?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting out. I'm looking forward to getting post-COVID for things to get back to normal.
So we don't have to put, as soon as we're done filming, the first thing we do is put our masks back
Every
on.
time we take a break, we put a mask on. We are absent harmony in this country. We're absent good attitudes. I think we're too much under the influence of social media that's not factual. There are a lot of distractions out there and misinformation, and I think it generally just puts people in a bad mood. I know that sometimes my wife says, "Why are you so grumpy?" And it's because of something I've read.
I don't even watch the news anymore.
I don't either. I stopped watching the news and I feel like I'm happier because it's always bad. Secondary to that, I'm looking forward to, we've put some folks in place in administration in the last year to lead us through the fire service accreditation process. We're the last large department in the state to be accredited, and that was one of the things I was hired to do. It's taken us some years to get things gathered up to start really pushing that. We're bringing a new records management system online in January, and I'm really looking forward to that. That's any chinks in your armor will be exposed by going through the accreditation process. It's a performance-based model, and when we come out the other side, the customers, the employees, everybody will be being served by a better agency, and I'm really looking forward to that accomplishment.
Well, there you go, folks. That's your fire chief. Appreciate you, Chief Mayo, for
Thanks,
being
John.
here.
Good to
Thank
see
you so
you.
much. It's always good to see you, buddy. We'll be back next week with more Camel City Chat. Engine 18 right here behind me. Maybe they're going to take me for a ride or something. I doubt it. See you next week. Thanks.